We are the change, and the change comes from within.
Hi, my name is Ruben. I'm a shamanic practitioner and the creator of WingMakers Productions. In the next few days, we will experience dramatic changes in our daily lives. These changes will include a meltdown of the current economic system, increased police and military movements, and unimaginable earth changes. However, it's more important to remember that these changes are also of an inner kind and that they are an integral part of the process of freeing ourselves of ages of past conditioning. These changes will give birth to a new human mind, which will also bring a totally new understanding of our relationship with the universe and the forces that shape our planet. In this video, I will discuss with the astrologer, visionary and author of Light Seeds, St.Clair, the nature of these changes and what we can do to empower ourselves in order to face the unknown. Welcome, please join me. Hello Michael, how are you?
Hi Ruben,
It's been
good to be together.
Yes.
This is a great moment.
It's been a very long time, yes. So, hello friends. So we are just here with St.Clair. He's the author of some famous books, Zen of Stars, Foreseen, and which other one?
Light Seeds.
Light Seeds.
Light Seeds is the book that combines Zen of Stars and Foreseen. And it's the big book that actually is now being read by most in the world as combined book. It is no longer actually presented as two books. It's in one big 580-page version.
Oh, perfect. Very good. So, first of all, before we start, would you like to explain where we are located? Because this is a wonderful place.
Oh yes, this is very special. This is a place in the south of Germany, in the state of Hesse, and it is called the Mathildenhöhe in Darmstadt. Darmstadt is also the city of the European Space Agency. This is a museum that was formed about 100 years ago in 1899 to 1908 is the time when all this was formed, and this has become the center of the Muro Art Deco movement with architects and the chapel for the Tsar, the Russian small chapel just at the entrance. And here in summer of 2009, we're sitting in an exhibition that has been devoted for looking at the role that the masks play in art and in history of mankind. And what we see right over there is this sentence in German that says that the phantom of the unconscious is the mask of surrealism. It's a brilliant exhibition that takes us from actually the antiquity, thousands of years ago, through the Palenque masks in Mexico, to Rodin and Picasso 100 years ago. So this is a very high-level exhibition with a lot of power, and the whole place is on a Celtic power point, which is in the middle of Aldin's Woods. Yes, this is where the Celtic, absolutely, we're on the top of the city, right on top of a very powerful point in the center of Europe. As a matter of fact, a healer told me just a few days ago that this place where we're at as a city is in the esoteric formulation of Europe known as the third eye, the pineal gland of Europe, this very place. And he was saying to me a few days ago that he was glad to come here to meet and to actually see that I was inside of the European pineal gland, because he can take the European map and construct it to show you all the body functions, in other words, all the chakra points.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
So it is. This is a powerful spot and exceptional exhibition that's going on right now.
Perfect.
So it's a good place for us.
Oh, thank you for sharing this time with all of us here. I know that you have a lot of things to say, and then we're going to go little by little today in some of these special topics.
Yes. Okay.
Because I think, things are happening outside now.
In the outside world.
In the outside world, yes, you're right. So we see that people are asking, what is happening outside? Mm-hmm. We see that the economy is crashing, is collapsing, that we start having strange weather patterns. Mm-hmm. Airplanes are crashing.
Yes.
And there's a lot of problems outside there. Mm-hmm. So people have these questions like also where we come from, what is our purpose. So throughout this video we're going to be discussing and exploring all these subjects. But tell me, what's happening outside there?
Okay, now spring summer 2009, we are in a very unusual astrological alignment with Jupiter, Chiron, Neptune in Aquarius, and with this opposition Uranus, Saturn and Pluto in Capricorn. Anyway, the long and short of it is that we are entering a very tense moment that will last about 6-7 years into, let's say, about 2015 at the very latest. At the very most, or I should say that 2015 is a critical point, but we go further than into 2020. To bring this back into the now, 2009, 2010, what is happening is the Sun is sending out different kinds of energies. The magnetic field, the magnetosphere, has collapsed already at this point. Again, spring 2009. The weather is visibly changing. We had spring, summer weather a few days ago. We have now again winter weather. The sea level is rising. Anyone can observe that the sea is coming up, that there are very mysterious waves and patterns forming all over the world. We have had reports in Papua New Guinea, we had reports in the south of France, in the west of France, west of Portugal. In other words, there is a coastal global phenomenon, event in motion, which is a long event that lasts about a year, that is underreported, but that people will feel. Islands will go underwater, new lands will rise, the coasts are being eroded, cities will disappear. This is in progress. In addition to this, there's a slight shifting maybe of the poles. This cannot yet be proven. So anyway, there's a massive climate change going on hand in hand with the magnetic field shift as we're moving through this galactic alignment, which is in October of 2011 and then through December 2012 and then on, as I said, into 2015 and 2020, which is the moment when Saturn goes in line of Pluto in the sign of Capricorn. So what all this means, apart from climate change, in a simultaneous in the same time phase, is that everything structural, governments, institutions, economy, universities, school, education, everything is folding on to itself and really collapsing. So we see in the outside world that the economy is in the process of disintegrating, which in turn will bring a disintegration and real collapse of the infrastructure and maybe even of the super infrastructure of the globe, of the planet. And this will of course cause in the real world a certain amount of chaos and of uncertainty for the people.
Okay. Yeah, well, that's not very nice to hear, though.
No, but this is not a problem because that's just the outside world. Because the changes that are happening now are of an inner kind. I've always said in my book too, the earth changes are of an inner kind. Those are inner changes happening in the soul, in the heart, in the mind of mankind. And what goes on outside is actually irrelevant when we think about it deeply. So yes, the economy is collapsing in a way that is not being reported properly, the people and the bankers and the institutions, etc., of course, under the impression, or rather, they report to the people to be under the impression that this is just a phase that lasts maybe for a year or two. This is, of course, complete nonsense and disinformation. This is the end of the economic order and the society as such, at least in the Western world. And so what is going on is that the super elite, or rather those who would purport to be the masters of the world, like these financial families and the I don't want to say names anyway, that these people are under the impression that they know what is going on and that they have a game plan to survive the changes in underground bases and that sort of thing. And the minion class, meaning the class of people that they employ, such as presidents, heads of states and CEOs, are under the mistaken assumption that this is only a temporary phenomenon, but it is not. This is actually the complete collapse that we are now witnessing. And when I say we're witnessing this, I mean right now. You know, May, June, July of 2009, this is happening. We're speaking here in March, right at the equinox, and we will see within a half a year the things that we're talking about already happening. So by the time this documentary is being seen, some of it is already past tense.
Yes, I would think so, because things are just accelerating very, very, very fast.
Yes.
And you can see on the news, like, you know, all the time, all these conversations and all these, like, headlines on the economy. But what do you think will be the implications of these, like, economic meltdown on the societal and the social structures?
Yes, I understand the question. It's that we have to see this from inside and not from outside. So we have to be prepared to meet this change from a changed attitude. So before I can actually answer the question, I have to say one more thing. We are within the next few months, in 2009, going to come to the point which Krishnamurti called the ending of time. In other words, we will meet the point where everything stops. And so everything that we are, everything that we bring with us past that point is what will be what we have as a reality. And this may be very difficult for people to understand, but it is the ending of a certain reality and the stopping of the notion of time. Okay, so what this now means for the economy and what the meltdown of the economy means for people is in a way very dramatic, because it means unemployment, hyperinflation, mass unemployment. I'm talking of millions and tens of millions of people in Europe and in the US and in the Western world basically becoming unemployed, and hyperinflation and the collapse of the currencies, the dollar, the euro, etc. And so what this brings with it is the charge or the obligation for those who want to go through these changes in a positive way to change their whole entire internal makeup of what their life is about, how they want to create economies, how they want to do their work, how they're going to live, how they're going to exist with other people, what relationships they form. I mean, everything about everything is going to change.
Okay. So, and then, well, we're talking about the outer world. We're talking about these societal changes,
yes,
the structures, economy. But can you, for example, tell me or tell us a little bit about those inner changes and how can we be ready for, well, in order to face the everyday life that is happening to be a little bit challenging?
Yes.
So, what's the best way to do it?
The best way is to become completely self-sufficient and self-responsible, which means we must not rely on the system, any system. In other words, we have to exit the matrix. To exit the system, we have to do this from inside. First of all, inside of us, change of a most radical nature has to happen, which means really changing the whole view of psychological time, how we perceive everything about the known as well as the unknown. We have to now be brave to enter the unknown and forget everything that we know in the past and go into this by deconditioning ourselves from education, from family, from just everything that was past. That's the first rule. So we have to change our inner makeup in order to also become, like I said, self-sufficient and self-responsible, because we cannot rely on any system of any kind, government, schools, universities, economy, banks, you name it. There will be no more system.
Yes.
And so this is a very challenging, as you said, very hard task for those who want to be ahead of the wave, to prepare in a mental way. This is a psychological preparation of what I'm talking about, as well as to some degree so-called spiritual, which means being able to work with the invisible world, with what surrounds us that is unseen, and go into a dialogue with these dimensional shifts that are happening through the transiting of the planets of the galactic alignment 2011, 2012. And then it gets very practical. We have to find places in which to live off the grid with new energies and create partnerships and relationships with very capable people, healers, teachers, engineers, scientists, farmers who know how to deal with the land, how to grow food, how to create entirely new concepts of living in new societies, of creating, in other words, new communities. And I have said in my book that probably the wisest thing to do, or what we will see happening, is to create communities that live off the grid, outside of the cities, because there will be a psychological meltdown that is much worse than any earth changes of the outer kind. When you have 500 million Europeans and 500 million North Americans who mentally lose it, that is much more dangerous than a sea level rise of 60 meters even.
Okay.
So you have to prepare inside first, is what I'm saying, and then find friends and group yourself into communities, not just to survive, because it's not about survival, but to create new societies outside of any structure.
Yes. Well, I mean, I have a lot of friends and a lot of people that just contact me, they tell me, okay, that's great what you're saying, but how do I do this? How I become self-sufficient in a way, like internally? How I become self-responsible? Where do I look? It's too difficult. I'm used, I'm used to all these structures. I'm used to, the government taking care of me, my parents deciding what I do, but where do people have to look in order to be self-responsible? I mean, how do they approach? How do they say, okay, well, it's time for me to be self-responsible? Because it seems that in the history that we see here in this museum, right, it's wonderful, but it seems that the human mind has not changed, and we're still in that level of being fun.
Yes.
Childish frame of mind.
Yes.
So, but probably we need to upgrade that system. But how do we do that? How do we become self-responsible? How do we deal with this internal self that sometimes betrayed us?
Yes. This is a very, very large question of huge implication. This is really what the book talks about. Okay, we can go through a few of those points. As you said, a new human is emerging, a new mind. So I was saying before, we have to decondition ourselves, go away from everything that we knew, essentially just unload of the mind what we were handed in the past, via family, via schools, via education, via whatever it was, belief systems, all that is finished. This is the end of it. This is the beginning of the new mind. How to do that? This is very hard to say. I think the answer is those who know will know. This cannot be taught. You either know or you don't. So I mean, we will reach a number of people who will understand what we're saying, and the others, I guess they will then learn from maybe watching what we do. But essentially it's a complete psychological transformation, and the ability of facing the ending of time. To answer as short as possible to your question, I think we have to be able to live in an impeccable way and to become aware that we are all leaders in ourselves, that we are both teachers and students and leaders of our own, and that we are self-responsible to the point that we are creators, like these artists who built all this, who constructed the art, who made the masks, etc. We are creator gods, maybe even at a point. We are ourselves able to create our life, our surroundings, to manifest our own realities. In other words, what I'm trying to say is that space-time becomes zero as consciousness rises.
Okay.
So one could say, and this is a formula that works, that consciousness, space and time is always constant, equal 1 or equal 0, and therefore the higher the consciousness will rise, the less space-time and reality is important. Or to say it in a negative way, for those to whom reality in the sense of space-time matters too much, they will live in a lesser consciousness. So those with the least consciousness will probably be in the underground bases.
Oh, I see.
If you see what I mean. So yes, we have to work on our own consciousness, and that is done in a relationship. Everything is relationship. We have to do it with, say, with the stars, with the planet, with the nature, with what surrounds us.
Okay.
This is a large subject. In other words,
Yes,
changing our way of perception of the world and of ourselves. And I think the most important thing is to stop thinking. We have to turn off thought and use thought only for when thought is needed. Thought is like an instrument, like a pen or like a camera, and you use it when you need to use it, and other than that you switch it off and you live from the center brain, the pineal gland, or even from the back of the mind where the seeing begins. This means seeing will replace thinking.
Okay.
That's the answer actually to your question.
No, that's very deep. Very deep indeed. For example, like now you're talking about like what's going within, but how do you see the role of fear in all this process of becoming aware and of seeing? Because it seems that sometimes we're unable to see because we're immersed in this state of fear.
That's right.
How can we just move beyond this state of fear? Because, well, we're going to see people just panicking, like around, like, I mean, well, that's happening right now. All these bankers, all these business guys, I mean, they're just like,
yes, they're
losing it.
committing suicide, they're so predicted, and they're going to lose it completely mentally. You're right, the first advice is to use your intuition. I think that's the most simplest advice, that you must use your intuition, act from your heart, listen to your feelings, and not to what thought is telling you. Then the secondary level is to be fearless. How to be fearless is precisely to use your intuition. I don't know if that makes sense. And then the rest of the things that we discussed briefly about creating communities or using gold, of course, instead of the worst as paper currencies, and how to move together in communities off the grid, creating all that. That's kind of tactical advice or tactical matters that is, for each one to choose for themselves the way they feel they want to live their lives. What's important is that people do what they like to do. We have to do what we're best at. Okay? Most people go to work in the morning to do silly jobs for nothing. All this has to change. You have to do what you like to do. We have to do what we're best at and be the best at what we do, if that makes sense. And then the rest comes from this combination of using the intuition, listening to the inner guidance, to the invisible world that surrounds us, maybe also be in dialogue with these energies that are coming in, take advice from them, from ourselves. And with all that comes a fearlessness that is just from a center, from acting in calm and peace, and not actually focusing on what goes on outside. It doesn't matter if the banks collapse. I mean, these economies were never real to begin with. This was all illusion. So this is sort of a Zen practice that everyone has to do for themselves. It may take quite some energy and effort and time to invest in a new learning. The new mind develops over so-called time, but you can do it instantly. The point I'm trying to make is this psychological time equal fear type equation will go away, because you can, from a moment to the next, decide that you want to change from within.
Are you saying that we are trapped within the system? I mean, the human mind system?
Yes, we're trapped in the matrix, of course. or what James of WingMakers calls the human mind system, and G, God, soul complex, etc.
Yes.
Anyway, yes, that story I can quickly summarize for those who have not followed James, although we're building, of course, on Krishnamurti and James of WingMakers, as those who know us know. Essentially, we're living in a matrix, in a surreality that was imposed upon this planet, and some of it even on top of the whole solar system, by forces from a long, long time ago, whose intention was essentially to control this planet. And so we have to now free ourselves from all of that from within. It is not by focusing on the system and complaining on things outside that we're going to solve all this. We're only going to make it from inside by changing our own ways, switch off thought, use the intuition, be fearless, and do what you're best at, or do what you like to do. And then the rest comes about. New economies, new microeconomies, new little societies, communities, new technologies, all that will follow. I mean, we are going to go through 5, 6, maybe 10 years, really 12 years even, of some tough times in the outside world. I mean, there's no doubt. But that's irrelevant. Behind that time, 2020, comes a brand new realization of where we're going.
Oh, I see. Well, the implications that you're saying that there are forces beyond what we perceive, they're huge. I mean,
yes.
I think we are completely unaware of these forces. And can you elaborate a little bit more? You know, like just tell us what you know about this, because I know this is
yes.
a huge subject.
Yes, it is big subjects.
But I think will be interesting and important to mention something, because, well, this is we are on the stage of sharing and becoming aware, though.
Yes.
And a lot of people are not aware, so you might want to talk a little bit about this, and then probably also you can mention. Well, there's two questions. I mean, these about, like, you know, seeing forces that are working within this planet and beyond, and you know, like what is James' work about? You know, this inner heart.
Yes.
Because I think they're very related. Because
yes.
Because I don't know if you think that probably these forces, at the end of the day, they're irrelevant, because all the power of how to deal with all these external forces comes within ourselves.
That's exactly right.
But can you just
yes.
give us an overview of this?
Okay, I think on the WingMakers issue I can't speak on his behalf, James. You know it actually better than I do. I think you can speak for WingMakers and for James a little bit. I come more from I wouldn't call it a school of thought, but it's a way of doing things. I believe in action without thought, although the word believing is wrong to begin with. But I know that all this stuff outside of us is actually irrelevant. When we focus on our own self and do these changes, then nothing that is outside matters. However, we are also in relationship. For instance, we're in relationship with planets, with stars, with what we're looking at in this exhibition, and of course in relationship with human beings with whom we, you know, together we do things. Otherwise we are Robinson Crusoe alone until the little Friday comes along and a society or an economy gets created. So the other subject, yes, the invisible world and the outside forces, is very difficult to talk in short about it. Mainly, I would say
maybe you could talk a little bit about your relationship with the invisible world since you were a kid, because I know that this is something that has been ongoing, and you know, like some of us, we have that relationship.
Yes.
And I think like many of us, we have that relationship, but many of us were not aware of that relationship because we were distracted. And we remain with this
That's
like
exactly right.
with this veil in our face that, you know, doesn't let us see.
Okay, look, I know what you mean. You have your guidance, you have relationship with your beings, and I have that. Some of the beings that work with us interrelate, connect. I call them beings because that's what they are. They are an intelligence. One could call them also simply an intelligence or an awareness or a consciousness of their own. Some of it does not take form of humanoid or human or anything. Some is just an energy and you feel a signature that talks to you in some way that is almost genetic. Or you can see through the third eye certain things, like we were looking at the Nordic crafts the other day at the castle up above, where you clearly could perceive, not in 3D with your eyes of course, but perceive the presence of these crafts around us. Okay, so as a kid I've had several sort of guidances, and everyone has that. I think everyone becomes aware at some stage that reality is not the way it's being taught by society, but that the invisible world creates the material. Once this awareness is there, everything else changes. The conflict is because you know one thing, but then you think another thing, so thought interferes. So these types of invisible worlds or beings or forces are different, of course, from person to person. We also represent different genetics. Some of us represent maybe more Syrian or Nordic or even positive reptilian, or there's so many other forces around from an extraterrestrial standpoint, but they're also simply forces of energies that represent, one could call them spirit forces or nature spirits, Vedic spirits, devas, whatever you want to call them. Anyway, that's then up to each one to have this relationship, work with it, create it, and go with that. And it's not for me to kind of say to people how to do this, because that's something personal. I find as long as you know it's there, you're okay. It's when you deny the existence of this invisible force of whatever kind it is that you are in trouble. It's when you deny that reality, which actually forms the reality that we can touch. And that's what the problem of this planet is, that you have 7 billion monkey minds with thought machine running 24/7, not paying attention to what actually creates what we see and even what we think. These are very large subjects to discuss in this short manner, but I feel that if you look at the book carefully and then look at yourself and your life and progress and see how you manifest things, how you create friendships, how you go about the work that you like to do, you will find for yourself that something guides you with which you are in contact, and that is maybe from within yourself. Now James and WingMakers and Krishnamurti, if applied to the most complete logical degree, would actually tell us that these forces are also part of the matrix, if you think about it very carefully. This then gives rise to more expanded awareness, and where consciousness comes in from beyond. And I feel that when we have reached the ending of time, which could be still during this year 2009, all this will become self-evident. When this becomes self-evident, you will see probably 90 to 95% of humanity completely lose it, mentally speaking, because they will no longer understand what's real, what's not, what do they interact with. And this is a passage of dimensions that interact with each other in a hyperdimensional shift, where we will see the invisible world, the veils will be so thin to almost fall away, and then that window closes again. And after 2020, we will live in another reality. Okay, does that answer kind of this whole subject?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. Well, it does. I mean,
the answer is that it's the guidance is inside of us.
Yes, I mean, that's...
Also in dreams, of course, in visions, and in science, small science, shamanic science. Look at animals, at little things. Today, before I came here, was a very strange weather phenomenon going on, with very dark skies in the morning and the sun shining through and snow falling. There was literally 4 seasons running concurrently within a half an hour while I went to the airport and back. And I was saying to the friend who was driving me, watch, we're going to see a rainbow. And within about 20 seconds, this massive rainbow formed from one end to the other over the airport to Frankfurt. Things like that show you clearly that you interact with some forces.
Yeah, I know that.
And that in itself is then a sign of complete validation of what you're about,
Yes, I know, yeah. It's very powerful what is happening around.
And it's becoming more and more. What I'm trying to say is there's an acceleration of all of this now. During 2009, 10, July 2010, when we go through the cross of the astrological alignment of the planets. Then into 2020, really, we're looking at 10 years, a whole decade of really accelerated phenomena of all kinds.
So that leads me to the next question. So, and a lot of people would like to know your feedback on where safe. I mean, like, I know that
Yes.
the best place to be safe, is within your own self,
Yes,
within your
it's
heart.
the heart.
But, I mean, within this physical reality, in this planet, you know,
Yes,
like,
yes.
Where is safe?
To be honest, okay, really honest, clear cut, I don't know. It's the fair, correct answer. If I pretend to sit here and tell you where is safe, I will make a vast mistake. So I have to tell you, going in, nothing is safe and everything is safe.
Yes.
Again, the higher the consciousness, the less space-time matters. So one can say, on the one hand, we can raise our consciousness in such a way that we can make happen the safe place, physically speaking, in space-time. But of course we have to know certain rules, like obviously as the water level rises, as the poles melt, the winds change and the shifting of the magnetosphere is happening, any coastal lines are unsafe. So you have to move away from the coast if you want to physically be able to create a new community for at least a while. It doesn't need to be long, maybe 1 or 2 years until these phenomena die down again and the water recedes. So where is safe is more likely in higher altitudes and in zones of what I call little or no human activity. That would be so-called super safe. On the other hand, you have to then, and this is a matter of personal choice and taste, decide if you want to interact with people and create art and new energies, new technologies, and go at the forefront, at the most advanced avant-garde of the wave of creation. And so we'll have to stay creative. And so the safest place actually is to be creative. Geographically speaking, this is difficult to say, and I shouldn't say it, but it is obvious and logical. I think everybody can look at the maps and study. And then I think the safest place, geographically speaking, is the place to which you will be feeling guided to go to or to be at. And then I want to say one more thing, which may sound very harsh, but it's not meant in a bad way. You know, maybe during all these changes, a lot of human beings and animals and plants will simply pass to another dimension, and maybe that is the way it's meant to be. Or as you said the other day, we were talking about this at this meeting that we had with our friends and some clients. You said in Japan, one says it's the way it is supposed to be. What was the word in Japanese?
I think it's like shogunai.
Shogunai?
Yes.
Yes. So you know that there is a certain element, I don't mean this in a fatalistic way, but certain things are not in our control. And we have to learn that that's okay. We are not in control, really, of anything. We're in control of our own being, and that's where we should be. So that is again a shift of mentality, of a complete change of how we perceive reality.
I know that there are some school of thoughts that they mention, okay, you should go here up in the north, or going to the south, or going to the east, or going to the
Yes.
west. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes, I'm going to answer this point. There is a discussion going on now that due to the pole shift of maybe up to 30 degrees, it would be better to be up above 65-degree North Arctic Circle. But that whole story, friends of mine and I have looked into this deeply for many years and discussed it in a way that Krishnamurti would call the thinking together, which is what we're doing here. And we feel, and I feel personally, that this is a red herring. In other words, it is a disinformation of itself, and in and of itself an untruth. I am not saying there will not be shifts. There will be obviously huge, dramatic climate changes and earth changes and earthquakes and sea level rise and all that stuff that we discussed. But I do not believe that it is of such a dramatic impact that we have to go run to the Arctic Circle. First of all, it is totally unlivable up there. You can't even, create a fire. I mean, there's no woods, nothing. You can't live there. So sure, you can create a Nordic society there and you can go there. I think that those who feel pulled towards that solution, they should go there. I mean, everyone has to go where they want to go. I do, however, not see this pole shift of the kind that is being discussed by those who advocate the 65 North school of thought. I feel that certain places in the mountains in Central Europe, even mountains in Japan, or in general higher level altitudes will be perfectly okay as long as you're far away from the coastlines. I want to say that in all of these subjects, economic, climate, pole shift, galactic changes, mankind, human mind changes, all of these subjects, there is an enormous amount of purposeful disinformation going on that emanates precisely from these unseen forces that want to keep control of the planet and of the matrix. And they will send brilliant, well-meaning people into us to tell us these ridiculous stories that in the end will amount to nothing. And I've called this in my work, in my websites and in my book and also in my interactive zone, the phenomenon.
Yeah, can you talk about that?
The phenomenon is a thing that interacts with you. In other words, if you ask it to tell you where is safe to be, the phenomenon will send you people, experts, opinions, and whatever to make you believe this, that, or the other. If your interest lies in the extraterrestrials or in underground bases or what the Greys or the ETs of this or that kind of doing, your head will be filled until you're crazy with all this kind of stuff. And so the phenomenon morphs around your interest. So whatever you feed into the thought, that is what you will get back. So there comes the rule, of course, of where you put your energy is where your attention is going to be interacted with. So you have to be very careful, particularly in these next coming months where we're going to the point of ending of time that I described, that the things that you think about and the things that you give attention to is what you're going to drag over into the phase of after the ending of time. So you have to be very, very careful what you think about, what you wish for, how you speak, what you manifest, etc., because that will happen at an accelerated rate.
Yeah, I think you're very, very right.
So anyway, sorry, just to say the 65 North thing, I feel is a disinformation.
Yeah.
I am not saying, again, that there are no changes. Of course there can be massive changes, but the answer to this cannot possibly be run for 65 North, which in and by itself is a form of fear. And you will find that everything that is being given to us in terms of information and disinformation of any kind, whether it's climate, economy, society, politics, is always to be looked at in a way of, does it trigger fear? Does it have to do with the concept of fear and conflict? Or does it have to do with raising your awareness and your consciousness and your vibration? And so this is why I said in the beginning, you have to use your intuition and your guidance and not act from the brain.
So you're saying that the phenomenon is everywhere, and then we just be aware of this very seriously, because I mean you can see that on the internet, all this fear that is just going around, and all this news and all this, like, it affects you emotionally, psychologically. And
it's designed to do that, of course. It is just like we agreed to say to all our friends, turn the television off and throw it out and never connect to a TV ever again. Actually, the same goes for the internet and your computer. The moment you open that screen, and wherever you click in and look at stuff, you have to be aware what's going to come at you. So it is designed to create confusion, fear, disorder, so that people of goodwill, of good heart, start fighting with each other or arguing of which is what and what should we go here or there. Distractions, that's exactly right. So to be cautious not to be distracted.
So instead of us just focus our energy within ourselves and see within this energetic heart, we are just playing around in all this internet zone and forgetting what is really essential.
Yes, that's exactly right. You have to be really careful that you use the time that's allotted to you, psychological time as well as your life, in a in an appropriate manner. You have to use that moment well, and that moment is always when we're in the now, and you cannot concern yourself unduly or too much about what could or will be, because by the way all of this is still in change. We don't know for sure what the changes are about with absolute certainty, because there is no such thing.
Well, you think that some of these changes would bring technological changes?
Sure.
I mean, like in our technology, the energy, probably free energy.
Yes.
And what do you know about this?
Well, there's a scientist that has developed batteries that will be able to take you off the grid. There will be new forms of usage of energy in such a way that we can actually go off of the grid and still function, partly with solar energy and wind energy, but completely new other kinds of energy forms that are free are going to come into play. They're not really free, they have to be yet still created and then manufactured and distributed, etc. But they will certainly free us up in the sense of being able to go away from the system. These changes will take a while. I believe this will probably take somewhere between 2 to 10 years still. So let's say 2010, 11 is when we will be starting to hear about the new technologies, the new electrics, the new physics, the new reality, which is all to do, of course, with a new mind, because the technology of the future is our mind. We are the new technology. You see, we are the solution. And that may then take up to 10 years, 2020, to become mainstream, until we have replaced the old paradigm.
Do you think that, or do you agree that a lot of these technologies, they haven't been released to the public because of our state of mind?
Yes, that's a very good summary. Most of us are not even ready to deal with what we could be dealing with. And this is why I said we have only to look at ourselves. We can't blame the system managers, whatever we want to blame. We have to look at us and our state of mind, and from there create it. But I know the creators of the new energies. They were at the meeting. We had someone who represents the scientists that are working on it. We have met new healers who have completely new healing methods that are coming into play, where they can, with radionics, change your spine, your thinking, your way of looking at things, your heartbeat. I mean, there is so much mind-busting stuff coming in the next few years, and that is phenomenal. I mean, we are going to be able to bend time and reality, shift and create new consciousness out of which to manifest anything that we can come up with, and that is this magical time, and that's what we have to focus on, and not on these rather ridiculous changes, whether these banks and countries disappear. Who cares? We don't need them. Everything that was before now has proven not to work, so it's a good thing that it goes. And again, if with it 80-90% of mankind also has to go, then maybe that is better for the creation of a new cosmic community. At any rate, we are going to have to be able to work from a completely new understanding of heart and inner third eye, etc., and the forces that work with us, to be even able to envision and then create and manifest everything that we're talking about. But it is a short period of chronological time. We're talking about 2 to 10 years, so by 2020 we will have the results.
So we're running out of time to be self-responsible and to
Yes.
apply this knowledge within our reality, because if we don't do that, probably most of us won't be here. I suppose,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Yeah.
We will be the ones who will choose if we will be going past that point of the ending of time. This totally depends on each one of us, to what level we want to raise our consciousness. Yes.
I don't like talking about these timelines, because
Yes.
it's supposed to be, people talk about many timelines. Okay, if we take this road, we're going to head into this, we're going to head into that. Okay, so
This is another form of disinformation, by the way. This entire timeline game that has been talked about in the internet, and Project Camelot and Dan Burish and these people, that is nonsense of its own kind. Again, that's a phenomenon. There is no such thing as timeline variant X, Y, Z and beings from the future that have come in to recorrect their potential future, and that is why they come here to teach us. In all that, those are inventions of a sort of a 33rd kind this is not true, it is not correct, because time isn't even in that sense understood correctly. Those are not linear functions, you understand? Time is a dimension of its own, to which we are coming to the end of the notion of it. So the ending of time is maybe a few months away, maybe 1 year, 2 years maximum, but this may not be perceived by everybody, you understand? Some of us will know the moment, and this is an inner moment, an inner type function. So these timeline discussions, I agree with you, are actually also irrelevant. Because again, this means that the mind looks outside for a solution and asks of something from outside to come and teach it a potential answer, when we are the answer. That's what I mean with this complete shift of understanding. It's all within us, and we haven't become yet enough aware of how powerful we are about all this.
Yeah, I do agree with you that we are extremely powerful. And I do agree with you with all these technologies that, I mean, most of us were not ready to deal with this type of technologies because our state of mind is still very primitive. So the next question would be, I mean, I don't want to sound too repetitive, but let me think this carefully. So, I mean, what about love? You know, what about like love in this? I mean, because this is an intelligence. So
yes,
I mean, and where does
love is its own intelligence. It's a good question.
Where does this fit?
Well, it's coming from the heart. We have to open the heart. It's an inner heart opening that has to happen in order to be able to even embrace all this. Because as you said, the state of mind of mankind is so primitive and literally monkey-like. This is why I speak of monkey minds. That if we have these technologies, or even if we raise the consciousness level higher, the mind then still wants to play tricks with it. I will probably be unable to even do with our mind in the state it is now what we're supposed to do later. So what you're talking about is a form of intelligence. It is actually intelligence, which in itself is again perception. So it's all the same.
Back here with Michael St.Clair. Okay, thank you very much again. Thank you very much, Michael.
Thank you very much. We worked very long on the book, on the video, on expressing these subjects to people for many years.
Yes.
It's time now that people begin to understand.
Perfect. So, do you want to explain a little bit about this piece of art?
Oh, this mask, yes. It is a double mask by the Italian symbolist Alfredo Wild, and it shows simply two faces of one being, and it is called Proud Character, Beautiful Soul, or Gentle Soul. It's a beautifully gold-plated sculpture that shows two masks, and the other situation that we were filming a moment ago, by the way, was a Janus mask, also a double-faced wooden mask from Africa, and behind the situation of the mask was a revolving small photography show that actually showed the young Picasso in front of the masks that he had painted. There were two paintings alternating with his own photography portrait.
Yeah, I just saw that. It's amazing.
This is an absolutely phenomenal exhibition taking place in spring of 2009 in Darmstadt, in the south of Germany, in the state of Hesse.
Perfect, yeah. So if anyone wants to come here before then,
they would have to see this fast. I don't know when we're going to be able to show it.
Yes, I guess so. Okay, so Michael, we were talking before about love,
yes.
The role of love in
yes.
all these changes that are
yes.
happening right now. I mean, because everybody's just thinking about, okay, how I'm going to prepare, like, am I going to be able to buy this food, these survival goods, what about survival courses, what about like all these issues. But I think a lot of the people, they're just forgetting about this important subject that is love. Well,
yes.
not subject, I mean, It's just
Well, it's all that we are. This is why we're here. I mean, we came here into this separation to understand that we are oneness, that we are one, and we're going back into this one that I said before, the ending of time, which is best dealt with this intelligence or perception, which others call love. I want to add to this that what is very important for the years ahead, the moments into which we engage now, in the next, say, 10, 20 years of human time calculation, let's say the next generation, is that we cultivate trust, human trust between human beings, because only with this very rare quality are we going to be able to build new societies, new communities off the grid, outside of governmental or other systems. So it's really all about trust. That's the other word or notion, with which comes also responsibility, because you see, those of us who are going to become, the new leaders of this planet, because this is our role, to lead this planet into a new consciousness, we are taking on a massive responsibility that goes hand in hand with trust, or like you say, love, or with this intelligence. And we cannot fail, and this is why I spoke about this sort of impeccable behavior, because when we're in groups and in situations where we will together build new economies, new societies, new technologies, etc., we have to understand that if one member of a small society, community, group fails at his or her level, he or she brings down the level of the group in which he or she works. Do you understand? So this will require an entirely new understanding of how we build a new society, which means we will have to have new forms of laws, but not law of the human mind like we had it for the past tens of thousands of years, but a law of ethics.
So you're talking about the new leadership, or
Yes.
the leadership of the future will
Yes.
be based on love, trust, integrity, self-responsibility,
Yes.
and that will be the new leadership. I mean, all this leadership that we're seeing around is it's just a joke, I guess.
It has proven not to work. So this is all one has to say. It has proven not to work after tens of thousands of years. We've now reached a point where we know this is not the way to go. So an intelligent being will see instantly, without thought, in action without thought, that he or she, that we must move. And the move has to be in any other direction but the direction we had before. Left, right, up, whatever, but not the same direction we had before. So all this is actually simple to understand. And now comes a moment when we just have to act. And we do not have much so-called time left to understand and to act. We have, as we speak now, in spring, summer 2009, maybe something of the order of 6 to 12 months to really move through this passage, this zone of phenomenal change, which we said was an inner change, the ending of time and the new understanding.
Wow, that's very powerful, all the things that we're discussing here right now. Yes, now I'm just like in societies right now, yes, and I perceive this lack of leadership, but I'm also very hopeful, or I just like an inner knowing that I know that this is changing, and it's changing very fast, because I see that the young leaders right now, like teenagers, very young fellows, like working with the future,
Yes,
very aware,
yes.
and they say, well, this is not what I want, this is not the future that I want, this is not what I was born for. I was born for the cleansing, for cleaning this planet and for build. So, and then we go back to the point at the beginning of the video that we were just discussing about like being co-creative or create
Yes.
like our future in a proactive and positive way.
Yes.
So that's amazing. Can you talk a little bit about what you know about these young leaders of the children of the future,
Yes.
the indigo children, the crystal,
These indigo children that are right around us here now, looking at these artworks and actually drawing them as they were sitting here. And then there are even younger ones, let's say born in the mid-90s. They are now about 12 to 15 years old. they come into their 20s just as we're moving through the most critical passage of the changes. They have come here with an understanding from their own past lives of who they are. They are time travelers. We are all time travelers. And they understand they're here to enact change. And we have to cooperate with them and listen to what they have to say. They understand it at a genetic level, minus thought. They know what the next steps are, and they're probably amazed to see this world in which we live completely disintegrating due to a lack of understanding of what the planet is about, the sharing of resources is about. I mean, they know the way ahead at a genetic level. This does not mean we wait for them to do the job. We have to do it together in cooperation.
Is this a time travel technology? I mean, like, I don't know, it sounds like like you mentioned something about time travel.
Yes.
I mean, do you want to go a little bit into that?
Yes, sure. The time travel technology is in us, in ourselves. We are the time traveler. All we have to remember is who we are, where we came from, that as a group of beings we came from the stars and are in this cosmos together to co-create, also with other beings, even with Nordics, Syrians, extraterrestrial. We're all under the same, or within the same cosmos, intelligence. We're in the same awareness and consciousness. And so we co-create from inside, in the sense of that we create the consciousness and the consciousness creates us. It's all one. I was explaining to you before, okay, the higher the consciousness, the less the reality of space-time matters. And that's what we create from inside. And these younger people, they kind of know. They don't know in the sense that they could explain, they don't know intellectually, they just will do it. So we will create again.
They're just
beautiful
activate
art.
And they
just do
it without really thinking about it, or just like...
That's right.
Oh, I see.
We cannot think. This is not a matter of thought process. We cannot go through this by going into the known. This which we knew, and all of thought, everything that the mind can produce, is always based on the known. And we have to understand that we must move into the unknown. So that's evidently, obviously, always new. So everything that we have known, that we use as the known, cannot function, has proven not to work. So all the solutions that we must find are by definition the unknown. But the human being, the mind, is afraid of the unknown.
Yes.
So what we have to do is, as I explained, be aware that you can cut thought off and see from the inner, middle and even the back brain, and cultivate the seeing, which is an instant knowing or an intelligence that's faster than thought or beyond thought.
Yes. So you're saying that we are, also you're saying that we are time travelers.
Yes.
And is this ability within all ourselves, or is just only special ones, or only Michael St.Clair, or only just like John, or anybody can have access to this?
Everybody has access to it. This is genetically given. You know it, I know it. A few of our friends who we've met now had long discussions together about what we will do together. We know this, it's just that we have activated it. Everybody could do it. The reality, realistically speaking, is that most probably, maybe in the beginning, only 5% will activate.
But why is this important? I mean, this ability, well, to remember that we...
the ability, why this is so, is because we must be able to plug into the psychic powers that we have, and it is with those that we are able to navigate ourselves into and through the unknown. And we cannot do this by using thought or the process of thought. The monkey mind must be silent. We have to find a place of complete stillness in which we know what people call future, but it isn't a future. It's just the direction, the movement of what we're doing.
Okay. So once we get into this state of mind of stillness, once we are able to remember that we are time travelers, therefore we're going to be able to rediscover our powers, I guess.
Yes, that's what's going on. The lost powers. Okay, let's talk about this in the sense that we have lost them because they were to some degree taken away from us. That is true. That is what James shows us in WingMakers. Krishnamurti showed it about 50, 60 years ago, before James. And we can self-ignite from within and activate who we are. To do this, all we have to be able to go through is an inner process of radical change of the mind, and know that it is instant. We can learn this in dream. You can, for instance, before you sleep, ask your guidance or the beings that you're in touch with, if you have beings that guide you, to activate in your dream, in your sleep, all the powers that you once had, genetically speaking. Become aware that you are a master of time, or of light, in a sense that you know the integrality, the totality of all of your lives, past, present, and so-called future, and that you are one arc of movement.
So this is
and then you see the sense of why you're here and what you're doing in this incarnation and others, and you integrate the groupings of other people that you once were and will be into one.
So this is yes, I understand.
This is something that the Toltecs knew to some degree. The Egyptians knew, many ancient civilizations knew it, the Lemurians, the Atlanteans knew it. This has been over the last, say, 4,000 or 5,000 years completely cut out of the genetics. With these latent psychic powers that we activate, we also must become aware of how to heal ourselves from suffering, from trauma of being here on this planet, and be able to heal ourselves to the point genetically that we can live again longer lives. We are constructed to live 400 or 500 years. We are unfortunately genetically reduced now to live maybe 80, 90 years. This can change. As we go through the stoppage, the ending of time, we will be able, in terms of healthcare, in terms of genetic re-engineering of our own inner self, with radionics, with new medical breakthroughs, we will actually be activating ourselves to live longer lives in a healthy state. We will discover new ways of eating, new ways of using water, how we can transform water into a healthy water. Right now we are drinking waters that are polluted and poisoned, you know, with all these chemical ingredients that are everywhere in the cities. We have to find a new water that exists that will keep us ageless and timeless for maybe 200 years. This will happen. And the kids, the new indigos, crystals, etc., they have an inherent knowledge. They come as souls into this realm knowing certain things. This is why I said we have to work together with the new scientists, and the scientists who know and who have worked in black projects and secret operations need to come forward and show what is available, because it is all there. All these sciences exist, they have been tested out, they work, and they are hidden and suppressed at the moment, but not for very long. In about 1 to 2 years, in 2010, 11, already we will hear from, you know, so-called whistleblowers, but they're just scientists who will become aware of their responsibility, what we talked about before, the trust, the responsibility, the impeccable behavior. They will become aware that what they're working on must be handed to mankind. So I'm asking for the third time in 3 years, since 2006, that they come forward and show what is available, and are brave enough to simply put it on the table and share it with the world.
Well, that's a very powerful statement. I guess I suppose they will come forward sooner or later.
Yes, they are already in the process of coming forward. There are scientists working on breakthroughs that I cannot talk about because they involve clients of mine. It is known that we can find a better water, that we can find other ways of healing ourselves with radionics and so on, and the new energies, and all of this is around. It is just that most of these scientists have been working for governments in defense programs and military programs of all kinds and of all nations. I don't want to point fingers to a particular group. That's not the point here. The point here now is that they come together from whichever language and culture they are, and trust that there are people like you and me and our friends and clients around who are going to go ahead and enact these things, and they need to realize it's okay to show what they know, and there is nothing wrong with spilling the beans and showing the secrets. It's not secret, it belongs to mankind. They have to show, they owe it morally, ethically, to show to the world what is being worked on. And they have to be brave enough and fearless, like we discussed, and use their intuition to know this is the right action, the right thing to do without thinking.
Well, I think also comes into the right timing. I think.
Yes.
I think time is very important, especially when you're talking about bringing forward certain knowledge. I mean, because as we talked before, probably we are still not ready for some of these technological.
We are to some degree ready. It's just that it's accelerated now. We have, like I said, very little time, maybe 1 to 2 more years. So yes, you're right in the sense that the majority of planet Earth is not ready. But we're not addressing ourselves to them. We're addressing ourselves to the new, younger people who are leaders of their own self. By leaders, I mean they know how to lead their own lives. It's not about leaders who will have followers. That's not what we're talking about. This is old paradigm. And I'm talking to those who know what we speak of. We're using light-encoded words, light language, light seeds. We all are light seeds. All these friends of ours are seeds of light. And we are ready for this internally in 2009. And it will happen as we go into 2011, 15, 2020. We will see all this happening. So I ask people to be optimistic and confident even through these apparently dramatic and traumatic changes that on the physical level we will see. And I'm saying just one more time, remember that the consciousness that you raise yourself with that makes the reality of space-time irrelevant. And therefore what happens in terms of changes outside that seem negative is not important. Don't focus on that. Focus only on what you can do to change your own world, of which you are the center, and from there on you have others that do the same, and together you create groups, that create networks, that create a web of life. And that is the new society.
Based on inspiration, I suppose.
Yes, that's what we were talking about in these meetings, and I know for sure we have at least 24 people, 20 friends who are at work on this throughout the whole world in at least 4 continents.
Oh, this is great, Michael. Okay. So
it's a time for action now. The main thing that people must understand, like James said, the time for acquiring knowledge, for blaming others, for studying conspiracies of all sorts is over. This is irrelevant. It's only action. At this point, it's practically speaking free for all action. Do what's right. And people who see us, they know what we're talking about.
Yeah, I'm very positive about this.
Yes,
I'm
I know you've been working on it.
These new developments, because yes, things are just coming forward now. All these new developments, these technologies, people organizing themselves in small communities. You have people at Finhorn, South America, Asia, many other places. People are very active about this, and I think that how is our state of mind is going to be very important of how we deal with the changes ahead. So that's what we're just discussing.
Yes, you have to be brave, and there are many groups around, like you said, in the world who quietly work on these issues. They lack maybe funding in the sense of resources, and that's something we have to work together with each other on creating new resources. And the resource of exchange, the new barter mechanism, is going to be gold, which is why I repeat one more time in front of the gold statue mask here that you are best advised to work on creating resources with gold and use that as the resource of barter mechanism, because you cannot count on any more currency. You will see the death of the dollar within 6 months, the death of the euro and other currencies within maybe as little as 2 years. So you have to switch over and create the resource mechanisms to create your own economies and your own solutions. Technology, energy, education, healthcare, all of it.
Yes. So let's I think yes, we can talk about this issue about new economies and the gold and everything probably in
we're going into each subject one by one. We'll look at the solution.
Okay, Michael, so thank you again for just being here with us. And now we just changed the setting to another different location, close to the museum. And we were discussing before a little bit about the economy and the new economies and how they're going to be how they're going to be working and what are they going to be based on. So if you can tell us a little bit about like some of your thoughts on the economy issue.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so as we are now well into 2009, by the time this will be seen, getting closer even to 2010, it's becoming clear to everybody that most people, 90% of the system managers, banks, economists, people, normal human beings who have jobs, will realize that everybody is under this fake impression that this so-called recession and downturn in economy, which we had predicted years ago, 6-7 years ago in my previous books we discussed this, is not just a recession or a depression. None of the events in the past in economy can ever compare to what is going on now and in the next 2 years, because what is happening is that the currencies are losing their value, that the Federal Reserve, that is owned by the major families around the world, Committee of the 300 or whatever you want to call these so-called controllers, are realizing on the whole that the currencies lose their value. The Federal Reserve has been formed in 1913 in an aspect, astrologically speaking, which by now, 2009, 2010, shows that the institution Federal Reserve is transforming itself. At the moment, as we record this, they're basically buying their own paper. In other words, they refinance their own debt by creating more debt, and with inflation even more debt, and with hyperinflation it then veers completely out of control. But it is not comparable to the 1929 or 30 situation. A lot of people are under this false impression that there are comparisons here to be made, so I want to explain that what is happening now is terminal as far as the economy, the currencies, the central banking is concerned. I used to call this reptilian central banking, because what is happening now is that we see a transfer of resources from the old paradigm into the new paradigm. This comes, of course, with extreme drama. So banks go insolvent and then bankrupt and they merge, as we had discussed in other presentations. So I have said to my clients and friends consistently in writings, in what I have given as opinions, as advice over the last 6-7 years, that we have to be well advised to buy gold, because gold is, after all, at the end, the only exchange mechanism of any value, and has always been so for thousands of years through the Chinese, Egyptian and other cultures. It is eventually the only reality that has any value. And what we will see happening now is that certain systems will try to go back to a sort of partially gold-backed system, because now they're not backed at all by any gold. It's just paper and debt and more debt. So if we think that we can solve the problems that we're facing now with methods that come out of the same thinking, we will get nowhere. And that is what you see happening in the US, in the Western world, and in Europe. There's no difference. The whole current economic system is doomed.
Well, I'm just saying, like, everywhere there are these bailouts.
Yes.
You know, like,
yes.
you know, different governments around the world are just like putting emergency packages. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, these bailouts are sort of black holes. They are basically, in my opinion, they are there to finance the owners of the banks, the same families that purport to be ruling the world, and those are the same families that also sit on most of the gold reserves. And the bailouts are also used to a large extent to finance the black operation, the secret program, space programs, underground bases, etc. These are subjects few people know about, but essentially these bailouts are non-existent, and it's just about creating digital money that doesn't even exist. But what it does do is it creates more debts for the nations, more debts for the banks, And so at the end, the populations will find out that all this amounted to nothing. We know this, those who watch us I think know this, and so the solution to this issue is seriously to make sure that you have enough silver and gold. So I have as a symbol of this created a gold resonator among my resonators.
Oh, really?
Where I found out the alchemy between gold and crystal.
Can you show that to our friends here? Well, that's impressive. Though.
This is a Austrian gold coin. It's a 1 ounce pure gold coin at the moment as we speak, about $960,000 worth. Intrinsically though, it is worth $5,500 if one would make the calculations of how much dollar is around, what the value of the dollar is from 1913 till now, 2009. Almost 98% of the value of the dollar has been lost. So when one compares in the mathematics what gold is really worth, this piece is already in current dollars, 5,500, is now traded at so-called COMEX spot prices, which is another illusion within the illusion. You see, everything is mirrors within mirrors. At the moment, 961,000. It will probably go, while COMEX still exists and while the spot price and such exists, maybe towards 2,000, maybe 2,500 in maybe 2 to 3 years, 2011, we'll see. At any rate, it is not even intelligent to measure gold against dollars or against euro, because that is taking into account an illusory currency that in and by itself is nothing but paper.
So your pronunciation would be that the gold will rise? Gold
will double once again. I had said in 2003, as you know, that gold will triple. You remember that when it was at 300? It's now at 900, so we went through this stage. It will double once more, it'll be 800 and then more. Only at some point the illusion will come to an end, in the sense that we will know that the currencies have no value. They will buy nothing. Whereas silver and gold have intrinsic value. Silver is a bit different from gold because silver is also used for industrial purposes, whereas gold is both currency and commodity. Okay? Then there is one more thing that I want people to understand, that is gold has its own alchemical value.
Oh, really?
So here we talk more about these magical, quantum physical, alchemical issues. And when you put gold and crystal together, some very powerful things happen around you. You can hold it and feel what it is.
Just powerful. This is completely powerful. This is just amazing. It's beautiful.
And then we also know that we can use white powder gold for health purposes. So gold has a value inherent in the alchemy that is beyond any price. It can't be numbered in figures. You understand? So yes, the advice has always been consistently to have gold and to create your own gold economy and your resources, which is what we had talked previously about. So anyway, I then started including this in the creation of my resonators with crystals, which we can talk later about, what this is about and how this creates an energy field around you that creates prosperity, that ultimately creates a form of success without having to depend on the system, on banks, on governments, on all the stuff that surrounds us still.
Well, that's very powerful. So Michael, can you just go like a little bit just on this topic on how has, I mean, because nowadays I just see, the price of gold, but it doesn't really reflect the true value of gold.
Yes.
Can you just talk a little bit about that, how in a way the value of gold hasn't been really, I mean, the real price of gold has been suppressed in a way. So.
Yes, well, the gold price is manipulated because the families who control the gold and who control the central banks and some of the bigger banks are the same people. And so of course they're trying to keep it as low as possible, to buy as much as possible, because they know that they will use gold partially to back their new currencies. So the game is to create yet a new currency, which is a fool's game in its own. It's another mirror, or like these Russian dolls put in each other. They will amount to yet another illusion. But the gold itself, they know, is worth much more. They hide this from the people and try with all sorts of tricks and disinformation to dissuade you from buying and owning gold. So you have to keep this in mind in your considerations and think about why that is so, and why therefore it's to your advantage in the long run to have gold and not to keep your resources in paper money. So the gold value is suppressed, so in order that they themselves can buy it still at lower prices. The problem is that if all the gold trades that are going through in the futures exchanges would demand delivery of physical gold, there wouldn't be enough gold in the COMEX, and COMEX would collapse.
But are we running out of gold on the planet?
No, there is gold, of course there is gold. It's hoarded by the families that rule the system. But there is enough gold around for normal people to create for themselves their own system of economy, to begin on their microeconomies, finance their technologies and do whatever they want to do without depending on paper money, and which is debt, which will be valueless when it goes through the hyperinflation.
I know that.
Which has started now already. The actual inflation in the Western world is somewhere along 25, maybe 30%. Of course, this is hidden and we're being told completely wrong figures. It's the same with unemployment. This all goes hand in hand. So anyway, I just wanted to point out the solution is very seriously gold.
Yes,
I said it before, but it's something that, just like these other subjects we talked about, underlies all these misinformations where we're being told by all the media, mainstream as well as alternative media, stories that are simply not true, so that we get confused and don't know what to do.
Okay, so I know that in your St.Clair zone, you have just put some resources for people to educate themselves on these issues. Do you want to suggest some of these books or resources?
Yes. The best thing is that people go onto my website and from there be guided through my websites to do their own studies and find the answers for themselves. It's never good that a person should become like a teacher or say an opinion or positive suggestions or advice. It's better that people educate themselves. So on my website there are several entry points into economic subjects. I have actually an economical website that is called gold.lightseeds.com that is devoted only to gold and to trading gold.
I see.
And in that zone that I have, which is more private access only for friends, whom we call the people that do the Light Seeds meetings, like we had here just a few days ago, we go into much more depth with a lot of resources where people can educate themselves, find out where, how to buy their gold, how to store it, etc. And then the next step is to create our own societies out of this.
Okay, that's very good. So, well, just changing a little bit the topic, or just maybe a little bit just related. You mentioned about passage 11. Where does this name came about? Because I remember reading this other book of you like long time ago that people might not be aware of this situation, but Michael has been around for a very long time. So I mean, of course you've published Light Seeds, then Stars, and Passage to Peace, and Atlantis Foreseen and Atlantis Oracle. Do you want to talk a little bit about your first two books?
Yes.
I mean, the Atlantis Oracle and Passage to Peace.
Yes. Okay, let's go back a step. When I began all this about 12 years ago, I wrote a book about Atlantean astrology because I remember vaguely, not in detail, the Atlantean life I had where I used to do the crystals, but those were large domed crystals with antennas for receiving and sending messages and ships and starcrafts and stuff like that. We had our own astrology, much of which is now forgotten, like we forgot practically everything. And Passage to Peace and Atlantis Oracle were books that dealt essentially with astrology, with finding our way through calculations of time, space, and predictions and things of that sort. The books were relatively complex and sort of interesting only for people interested in astrology. I had taken advice from friends, and it became clear that this knowledge had to be made available in a vaster way. So the books got reshuffled, compressed, re-edited, rewritten, etc., and came out in the form of Zen of Stars and its sequel, Foreseen. Foreseen is more of a hyperdimensional reality type of science fiction, a lot of which though is going to be shown to be true, particularly the economy subjects we just discussed, the debt system, the families that collapse, that rule the banks, etc., the central banking. Anyway, then we put Zen of Stars and Foreseen into one book and condensed it some more, and this then became the book that is now the one that is published and that most people actually take, which is Light Seeds. So Light Seeds in a way is a condensation and summary of everything, of Atlantis Oracle, Passage to Peace, Zen of Stars and Foreseen. Okay, so if people are interested, Light Seeds is the one book that has it all. But it is available in 3 pieces like a trilogy: Zen of Stars Part 1, Zen of Stars Part 2 and Foreseen.
Wow, that's impressive.
And in the version of Light Seeds there is a short passage about 1 chapter about the resonators and what these instruments can do when used by a mind that is able to cut through everything like this crystal can.
So what can you do with this?
Well, what I found out is that as I was myself under a lot of psychic attacks during the publications of these books, I figured out that if I use crystals around me, it creates an orgone field and a shield around me that at least protects from incoming entities, darker entities, psychic attacks and stuff of that sort. And I was looking for a way how I could have more than just one crystal on a table or on a desk or someplace. And so I developed a technology which can put several crystals of several kinds together. First of all, it's just a piece of art. It's artistic, it's nice to hold, there's powerful energy in this. This one is a giant citrine with a moldavite. Moldavite is from not of this earth, right? It's a stone that came from outer space. Very rare actually in this form, and there is gold around. So I combine now more and more gemstones, gold and crystal and amethyst. And I then had friends and clients who looked at it and wanted them. So I began producing them privately. I did about 75 to 85 so far in 2009, and the first collection of the year 2008 is almost sold out. And the friends and clients who used them found out and told me that in reality their lives have improved to some degree. And I think this has to do with what the person who holds the instrument does with it. And this is here now a typical issue of building a relationship with the object. Like we build relationships with stars and planets who live the astrology. We can then with this crystal do whatever you want it to be charged to do. This is then up to you to manifest. It has been used in some cases for healers, where they do it for healing sessions. It has been used to help create positivity around you, to project power, to create prosperity. This one is the Austrian School of Economics resonator with the Austrian coin. And together with crystal and gold, pure crystal, pure gold, you get an absolutely powerful field of energy around you that both protects and projects. So you can do pretty much what you want. This is up to you. It's a seeing stone also. You can of course look at it in a meditative state and it will be speaking to you. I have a lady friend whose son, he's about 10 years old I believe, collects crystals, and he told his mother when she asked him why he does this, that they talk. He said, "Don't you see that they talk to me?" So children, as we were speaking about these advanced new children, know about these things. This is where now the old genetic memory reawakens and comes alive. So now a group of clients and friends have gotten into really working with these crystals, not only for themselves and their lives, but for their groups, for the people they work together with, for their clients, their friends and their locations, their radiant zones, their safe places, their economies, technologies, whatever they want to do with it. I mean, there are no limits. And it seems to work. We're now past the stage of test and research and development, and now I do it as art. I love doing this. It's in and by itself a meditative occupation.
Yeah, because
I'm beyond predicting events. I don't like to do this astrology personally too much.
Right.
We know, because I think it is not a very appropriate use of my energy or effort or time, and I also know that what we call the future is under constant change, and I also know that as we raise our own energies and consciousness, space-time as such will lose its importance, its relevance, and so it becomes less and less important, more and more irrelevant. And so astrology also transmutes to a new meaning. There will be a new astrology. We will rediscover the ancient form of star signs. And I found simply that with the crystals, the citrines, the amethyst and the gold combined, we can actually get results. So instead of wondering what was in the past or being worried about what the future should be about, we're just better off just to create it, and these instruments have a way of helping to be a creator. That's what it's about. Mm-hmm. In addition, like I said, it's a seeing stone. It connects, of course, the crystal in the mind, the magnetism. We human beings are built of crystals. Of course, the Earth is a giant crystal. Other planets are crystals. So all this stuff starts connecting in one field and builds a more intense field through which we can communicate. It also helps to some degree to build a connection to the starcrafts with the Nordics and to use it actually as an antenna. I mean, you could hold it into a full moonlight, put it in the sea, clean it, and you can have it talk to other beings and get messages through it in a deeply quiet, still space. I've tested this out now in the last few months, and it does produce its results. Mm-hmm. But I think there are certain subjects that are better that people just find them out by doing it.
Yeah. Because
this has to do with not secrets as such, but certain esoteric things are better just practiced than talked about.
Well, that's very powerful. No, it's super powerful, because I've been aware that, for example, the Aztecs, the Egyptians, and all these, well, the Incas, all these ancient traditions, cultures, they've been using crystals for a very, very, very long time.
Yes.
I mean, just the Kero people in Peru, in the top of the Andes, they use like cuyas, you know, just for healing. I mean, and they establish this relationship that you've been talking about with them, and it's just like part of the family, in a way. But we seem that we are in a way that like crystals are alive, that trees are alive. It seems that we've forgotten all this knowledge.
That's right. Crystals are beings. They are alive. This is not dead matter. This is an actual being that has its own intelligence. We were talking about the field of intelligence, and it does its thing. And I met the crystal cutter who comes from the Toltec school, and he's now going to work with me on some projects also, and he says the same. He says this science was there and should be reawakened, and we're into doing these things. That's what I'm doing now in 2009.
That's amazing. No, and I'm sure that in the next few years there will be just really, really advanced things, and I mean,
we will make them bigger, better, and more beautiful.
Great.
So my next aim is to do a sculpture of crystals in a large space to protect the energy of a large zone, because the next subject really is to create radiant zones. That's what we have been talking about with Cliff High from Half Past Human, with other friends, that now the time comes where we have to get serious about getting our things going. You know, we can't waste our time talking about how the economy falls apart and what happens to this nation or this politician. This is all over. So we have to get proactive. So this is a tool by which we can accelerate, activate our things, and then create our communities, because after all it's going to be about communities that we have to work together and then trade and organize ourselves in the sense of trading with each other internationally, trading information, knowledge, wisdom, tools, goods, services, gold, etc.
Can you talk? I want to go a little bit more into detail with this issue of this topic of the radiant zones.
Yes, okay.
Because well, you just brought up that, but I think it's very, very important because, okay, well, for example, what's the difference between a radiant zone and an eco-village? I mean,
it can be the same.
It can be the same, yes. So it's only...
It's a term. Radiant zone is, to me, the whole Earth, this whole planet is a radiant zone. It's not so much that we create it, it's that we have to come into an understanding and awareness with the Earth, with the crystal, with the being of the planet, and then establish an energetic field around our place where we live and where we work, and where we create our communities. And so an eco-village would be typically a radiant zone.
Well, that's It's great. Can you talk a little bit more about that? I mean, for example, where would be like a good place? I mean, for example, I know that there's some like a power spots in this planet, right?
Yes.
I mean, like some. Well, we're talking in the museum that there was
Yes.
a power spot.
Yes.
But when you place a radiant zone in one of these spots, would that be like an advantage?
Yes,
Would
sure
that
you
be
will.
a disadvantage?
Yes.
Or are there some locations, or anywhere can whatever you want, you can just have a radiant zone, or what?
No, you have
need?
to look for a place essentially that is free of human mental garbage, to be honest. So you have to go into an area that is energetically protected.
Mm-hmm.
This is now where it begins the other subjects that we talked about, with working together with the field and the forces and the beings and the guidance. You have to look for places that are ideally protected by nature, with trees, with water, with rocks, with situations that are self-protecting by their very own definition of the nature that surrounds them, into which then you can put in your own new architecture that blends into the landscape, and where you work
Like
also
Earthship style,
Earthship, for instance, also usage of new materials, the iCell battery system I told you about, solar power, where we integrate then everything that we know and has yet to be known to be coming forward to us in terms of knowledge of how to power up the houses and communities. And so sure, a radiant zone will not be able to be done in a city, so you will look for power spots and you find them via your intuition, via guidance, inside, outside guidance. With crystals, you see where the crystal leads you. I mean, believe it or not, I have 2 clients who told me the first thing they did when they received their resonators is that they looked at it and that the resonator prompted them and gave them the impulse to go out and find a place. So there's clearly a form of communication going on. And sure, these places will be in what are PowerPoints. Now, these PowerPoints are not necessarily where they used to be, so you can't just go to a former power spot and implant your community there. That's not necessarily how it goes, because now the grid is changing. There's an entirely new grid forming around the planet, so that these ley lines that we used to have are not necessarily the same. So how you find your place is a matter of you working with your tools and your intuition and your friends, and be guided to the place where you will be doing your new work. And you will do that, of course, together with other people. Like I said, you cannot do it alone. No one can work these things on their own. So it's beyond survival. It's not about survival. It's about really enjoying your existence, your life, and moving forward. And I feel that you ideally will want to have about 20 people around you to begin with, because you need a certain number of experts at certain subjects that no one can know everything about. You need at least one teacher that can take care of teachings, that has knowledge, wisdoms. That's usually the function of an elder in ancient shamanic worlds. The radiant zones are forms of shamanic communities, after all. And another way to term them is tribal communities. I like the word tribal networks.
Well, what do you mean by
which
tribal?
means tribal the way we had it in the past a long, long time ago, like the shamanic cultures had in Europe, places of the world, in Mexico, in the South Americas, but also tribal, like the Celts had it here in Europe, like the Celtic people had, and the star beings who moved simply into wormholes or time warps into this planet. They were not evolved from here, they came from other places with other knowledge. So you put these tribal communities into a place and connect them to others. So in one community you will need, like I said, certainly a teaching function. Healers will have to be there because there's so much trauma and suffering that has to be dealt with, that you need very advanced healers. I'm talking about people who are knowledgeable about, say, Oriental medicine, the use of chi, how to refine yourself, because this is, after all, in the next few years, about how we refine our own selves, how we move back to our power, into our power and forward. So you need, again, teacher, healer, then you will want to have for sure somebody that has a particular expertise in some higher advanced technologies, which could be energy or healing technologies or information technologies or whatever services that are going to be looked for and are going to be in demand in the future. And you will see that the demand will be exceeding the supply. So whenever you have a group of people who have the advanced technologies, the advanced healers, the advanced teachers and farmers who know how to deal with the land, and I'm leaving out many other experts, you then will immediately have 10, 20 people together. Now they have to be of a certain mindset and of a certain understanding. I don't like to call this spiritual because it's a word that has been abused and is misunderstood. It's basically a group of people that can act in the now, live in the now and do the right thing almost immediately. And then of course each space will probably become a microeconomy of its own. Say someone has been working on free energies, that will then create a radiant zone or structure around the subject free energy, whereas another one will be maybe more advanced in healing techniques, radionics, etc. So you will have several different specialized radiant zones around the world that create these tribal communities that network with each other. I think it's going to be important, for instance, that boating is understood and that you know how to sail. So you can't know everything. Obviously you then begin to manage and to create your own society. Then comes the subject about how do you create a new society, what are the understandings or so-called laws among yourselves, how you work with each other, how you make sure that everybody's happy and understood and that there is an action within the group as well as within the individuals. The individual alone cannot do it, but at the same time you have to respect the individual. You cannot act just in group mind, in like a hive mind, like say clones. So there's going to be a balance in all of this. It's a vast subject. That's the book Lights is about all that. How you create the future time-traveling communities.
Well, I think this is amazing though, because I think just from that point many things are going to start changing. I mean, the communities, you know, like in our future for the kids, and many other issues. With your teachers, what are your teachers? I mean, like
teachers. You mean in the past? How I came to knowing what I do? Or
yes,
teachers
you know, yes.
Of the interdimensional sort.
Well, we can go like step by step, and then just go into your sources of inspiration, your teachers,
yes.
your. Of course, we're all guided, though. But
I think my story is not dissimilar from others. I think we all have the same story. We came into this world, looked around, and we saw this is a mess. So our first instant knowing was, you know, what are we doing here among these monkeys? And then the rest of the teaching, I was in a way sort of lucky, but also I pushed the envelope very far. I never accepted what was explained to me because I knew anyway it was false, but I was trying to understand the reasons. As I went to school, then I had teachers who showed me ancient esoteric history, how the world really was formed, how time-space belongs together. Astrology was taught to me early on. So I had people in my life throughout my career who somehow made sure that I got just about what I needed to get to the next step. That's a form of manifestation that I went through while just having to stay in this society at work and part of staying of use to people. And then later, or even as a kid, intermittently with interruptions, I probably worked more or less consciously or unconsciously with, as you know, beings from outer space. Some visited here in physical form, some simply via the ships, because they cannot actually hang in this atmosphere for very long. And the rest goes via telepathy. So that's a form of, I would say, communication, because it's not just teaching one way, it goes both ways. They listen to me too. I have also something to say in the equation. I found that out later, that I can actually address myself to them and make suggestions. And then it may take a while, but one gets feedback. So the teachers, it's a subject that I think at the end everyone has to understand that you teach yourself.
Exactly, I think
so. The teacher is in yourself, but sure, I had outside help. And then the last one of the great teachers in that sense I've never met while alive is Krishnamurti, whose work I studied extensively, and beyond studying I was trying to understand what he means so that I can apply it. So I learned early on that there has to be a new astrology, there have to be new means, that nothing is really valid if it's known, that we must continuously go into the unknown and figure out new things for ourselves and accept nothing that was given to us unless it's useful and makes sense. So yes, Krishnamurti in that sense was a teacher that is, worthy of this name.
Perfect. Just another question, because we're just a little bit discussing subjects like little by little, but
yes.
I mean, how do you see, this planet in, let's say, like in 15 years?
In 15 years?
I mean, I don't want to play too much with these subjects.
Yes,
like,
I understand.
Going into the future, but
that's fair enough.
But I want just to explore a little bit the idea of the next 20 years in the future. How do you see it? Do you see that we'll be just make it through?
Yes.
Do you see a positive future in a way?
Yes, I'm very optimistic in the sense that I'm confident that I know that we have met the right people and we will meet more of the right people that will be useful. And that together, although separate all around the world, we will continue to do what we're doing, what we're best at, what we like to do, to be creators and stay creative and create new societies, new communities. And we will move through these outside changes in an appropriate manner and stay unharmed and stay maybe in the beginning almost hidden while of use to the outside world as we can, and protect ourselves through this time and come out the other end in better shape, and then continue in an accelerated manner to bring about the solutions that this planet needs. Because after all, this work we do is actually for the planet, it's not for us. That's one thing that everyone must understand. It's actually not for us that we're doing it. It's for a much bigger society that is cosmic, and our job primarily is to look after the planet.
So a cosmic society.
Yes.
So you're saying that
we will be time travelers. In 20 to 50 years, I think we will be able to move beyond space-time into other realms and become what the ETs are now.
That's right.
And we will be able, like I had hinted at before, to learn new medical technologies that will enable us to activate the DNA so that we can live longer lives without becoming sick. And kids who will be born or are born now will be able to be early on self-sufficient without being sick at all, and there won't be any more illnesses, and we will automatically live much longer and much more productive and happy lives. This is the larger scale outlook 20 to 50 years from now. And sure, we will be going through a lot of problems that have begun already the last 2 or 3 years. So we're in the middle of the Earth changes. That's already ongoing. Tsunamis are happening, the quakes are more frequent, bigger.
Volcanoes just recently.
Volcanoes you had yourself, 40 miles from where you live. I have seen the waves myself, I've seen the behavior of the sea. I mean, it's a beast out there, you need to know what you're doing with the nature. There are systematically the erosions of the coastlines happening. We've talked about the sea level rise, that's a fact. This coastal event phenomenon of the next few months, all of 2009, will be massive. There is the magnetosphere that has practically collapsed, and the Arctic winds and the whole climate is changing in such a way that we now have the cold fronts going down into the Mediterranean. I have seen islands in the Mediterranean that have snow now in March that have never had snow before. So all of this is happening as we speak. This is going on. Tsunamis are happening that are not reported. Burma was underwater. China had quakes. There are of course artificial quakes. We have to remember that these nations and these controlling entities fight each other with quantum scalar weapons, not with nuclear power. You know, nuclear, every time when people speak about nuclear weapons, it's a joke, because nobody is going to use 60, 70-year-old technology that's essentially dirty, that makes everything a wreckage. What they're using now are quantum weapons that will take care of taking people out of the equation, but leaving the infrastructure still more or less intact. However, they can also use the quantum weapons to make earthquakes happen, to force certain nations or governments into compliance to what they want to achieve for economic reasons. It's a very sick almost, yes, it's a mentally insane asylum in which we still live, where wars of that kind are going on by using technologies for the wrong purpose. So you have to see that there are nature-made events due to alignments, due to climate changes that are actually caused by the frequency changes of the cosmos, also by the frequency changes of the rising consciousness. All this goes hand in hand, but at the same time you have the man-made, or rather clone-made events. Anyway, the future is bright. We will make it. We'll make it in the way we want. We have to focus on what we want, not on what is going wrong.
Yeah, you said.
However, at the same time, we have to be aware that things are going in the wrong direction, and we have to take the appropriate measures to protect ourselves. It's pretty simple. It's Zen mastery that we have to apply. We have to apply the Taoist teachings, the Toltec teachings.
Yeah, the change comes from within.
Yes. And we are the change. We discussed it many times. It's only we are going to do it. We can't wait for some outside agency to come.
Hello again. As we have discussed with Michael St.Clair, this transformative period will require us to be balanced and coherent in mind and heart. It will require us to be self-responsible, to look within for answers, and to practice the hard virtues of compassion, forgiveness, understanding, appreciation, humility, and valor. It's important to understand that there will be no Armageddon, that it will not be the end of planet Earth, and that no ETs will come to save us. All this fear around this subject has been designed to disempower you. Please be aware of it. Do not give your creative power away. The coming energetics that we're about to experience are beyond our current comprehension, and there will be no place to hide or avoid them. As my friend Michael St.Clair clearly pointed out, the time of lies and secrets has come to an end. So please again, to the people, entities who hold a hidden knowledge of humanity, it's time to share your knowledge with the rest of us. I'd like to finish just by saying that we must recall our ability to dream beautiful dreams, and to remember that these are the birth pangs of a new and wonderful beginning. We are the change, and the change comes from within. Please be safe and well.